We're talking about our best bets on college football underdogs for week 10. Jake, last week, you and I went 10-7 on our picks. And if you followed those plays, you would have been plus 3 units.
Can't complain at all about a plus 3 unit weekend. That's what we in this business like to call sushi money. So let's run it back and make some more money for sushi on Saturday.
We start off with Oklahoma at Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State getting 6 points at home in an afternoon game. These are two of the best rushing offenses in the Big 12, and Oklahoma State's a win away from controlling their own destiny for the Big 12 championship. Last week, Kansas dominated Oklahoma's defense, and now they've got to go on a road game into a hostile environment that wants nothing more than to watch OU lose one last time before they take off for the SEC. Now, Oklahoma State lost to South Alabama to start the year, and then they lost to Iowa State on the road. But their wins are looking more impressive every week. Now that they've gone over 39 points 3 times in October, really made me a believer in Mike Gundy. Last year, you and I both were on Kansas. This week, I'm on Oklahoma State.
I'm right there with you. I like Oklahoma State because their rushing attack has just been absolutely godly the last few weeks. Running back Ollie Gordon II, 5 consecutive 100-yard games, with the last 2 being over 270 yards for both games. First Oklahoma State running back to have back-to-back 200-yard games since a guy named Barry Sanders. I don't know if you've heard of him. Oklahoma State, 4 consecutive weeks over 29 points. Oklahoma, meanwhile, the last 3 weeks have given up 29 plus all 3 weeks. So Oklahoma's defense is not as tough as they have been in the beginning of the season. They're definitely susceptible to giving up points. Oklahoma State is playing incredibly hot. Now they're at home with a raucous fan base. Bedlam for the last time on the schedule, getting 6 points. Rivalry games, I love to side with a home underdog, so definitely like Oklahoma State here.
Next, we've got another Big 12 matchup. Kansas State is at Texas. Texas giving 4.5 points.
Home favorite for Texas, even with a backup quarterback. Quinn Ewers out again this week. Kansas State, Will Howard's back. He's healthy. He's playing well. Kansas State as a whole has been playing pretty well this season. I think we were kind of down on them after that performance against Oklahoma State. But it turns out Oklahoma State's actually a pretty decent team. And since that loss to Oklahoma State, Kansas State went ahead and beat Texas Tech on the road by 17 points. And then back-to-back weeks have won 41-3 and 41-0. That's pretty good recent form for Kansas State. Now Texas has a backup quarterback. I don't think that he's going to be able to put up a ton of offense on this Kansas State defense. 4.5 points is a lot for a Chris Kleinman team. Texas won this game last year. You know that Kansas State's looking for revenge. I'm just not trusting in Texas without Ewers here. I love Kansas State in this spot. I think they can win this game outright.
Yeah, the sketchy thing here for me is that Kansas State hasn't beaten Texas in 6 years. And the last time they would have covered 4.5 in Austin was like 12 years ago. I know their losses were both close, but the defense for Texas knows they got to step up with Murphy at QB. So I think I got to stay away from this one. Next is another Big 12 game. BYU is at West Virginia. West Virginia having to give 10 points. It is at home at night, but BYU is such a tricky team to bet on because they look awesome one week and terrible the next. And I think that's why the lines never make much sense. Both these teams are playing for bowl eligibility. And the most interesting fact of all is that BYU has found a pattern. They win every other week, and they have been doing that since week 3. Beat Arkansas, lost to Kansas, beat Cincy, lost to TCU, beat Texas Tech, lost to Texas, and now Vegas thinks West Virginia should give them 10 points. Something's not adding up, so I'm going to ride BYU to keep it competitive because West Virginia is still just a 7 or 8 win team to me, and at the end of the season, I think that's where they end up.
Yeah, outside of Duquesne, West Virginia's biggest win on the year is 13 points, which was last week against UCF, and that game was super back and forth, and West Virginia kind of got that extra touchdown at the end to pull away a little bit. But they certainly are not a team to me that can go out and beat down a team. Keaton Slovis from BYU has had some games where he looks absolutely incredible and some games where he looks absolutely terrible. West Virginia's defense, I think, is probably not as good as a lot of the other teams he's faced. Therefore, I'm kind of leaning towards him to look good. So I think the 10 points is probably a strong play there.
So if you want to bet this pick or any of the other picks that we've talked about in this video or any of your own or any other sport, you can sign up and play on BroThrow for free from any state in the US, including California, Texas, Florida, literally any of them. You just go to the link in the description box below. It's brothrow.com/YouTube. There are no withdrawal requirements. There are no minimums. There's no deposit. And best of all, you don't pay a VIG. So on sportsbooks and on all these apps, you got to pay -110 odds. But On BroThrow, as you can see on the screen, it's plus 100, which means if you bet 50, you'll win 50. So Jake and I have saved a ton of money by playing on BroThrow, and that's the only place I play now. But Jake, we're moving on, going over to, what is it, Arkansas at Florida. Now we've moved on from the Big 12 and into the SEC.
Yeah, Arkansas is a team that this season has really played to their level of competition. They looked really good against Alabama, only losing by 3. And then they looked terrible last week against Mississippi State, who's the worst team in the SEC. They fired their offensive coordinator, though, and I think that's going to be a big difference. I think this team is going to come out, be much better at moving the ball down the field. Not to mention that as they're a team who plays to the level of competition, they're a much better team to back as an underdog. That's what I said last week, that I didn't like taking them as a favorite, but I do like taking them as an underdog, especially when your opponent on the other side is Graham Mertz. I understand he's looked better this season, but it's still Graham Mertz. He got destroyed by Georgia last week. Florida, I just don't think that they should be 6-point favorites here against Arkansas, because Arkansas is a team that, can keep every game close no matter who the opponent is, because that's just the style of game they play. So I'm riding the Hogs plus 6.
See, I love and I hate Arkansas so much. They cover as dogs, but when you make them a favorite, they won't even win outright. Last week, they got a week to regroup. They had the bye. And like you said, they got rid of their offensive coordinator. But losing to Mississippi State at home was a joke, and only scoring 3 points was even dumber. So I just don't know if I'm ready to trust them yet. Next is Stanford at Washington State. Washington State has to give 13 points. Now, it is at home at night, so maybe that's playing a factor. But the one thing I don't like here is that line just seems way too big. Washington State, I don't think, has covered 13 against a single Power 5 team yet this year. So right off the bat, it already stuck out. But Oregon and UCLA blew Stanford out with a dominant defense. Washington and Colorado, who don't play defense at all, had no chance at covering in those games. And I think Wazoo's in a similar boat. They've got a bottom 10 D nationally. They're on a 4-game losing streak. And even though it's at home at night, like I said, they're just not going to be able to slow down an offense that's gotten better as the season's gone on. So give me Stanford, even though I usually would never say I want to bet them.
Yeah, I think you absolutely hit the nail on the head when you look at their opponents that they've struggled against. It's not a style that Washington State plays. Their style is much better, much more similar to the teams that Stanford has been better against. Quarterback Ashton Daniels has been pretty decent at times. When the defense is really good, he can't do anything. He's just not quite at that level. But against Wazoo's D, I expected to put up points. He was able to put up points against Washington. Able to put up points against Colorado. I definitely believe that he's going to be able to put up points here too as well.
Last is Wisconsin at Indiana. Indiana at home getting 9.5 points. I think this is your favorite team.
Yeah, they're my favorite team, so I might have a little bit of bias in here as I am an Indiana Hoosiers alum, but Indiana's defense has been very, very good this season, especially against the top teams in the Big Ten. Against Ohio State, they only gave up 23 points. Against Penn State, they were looking very good and kept them in the game the entire way. And against Michigan, they only allowed 7 points the first 25 minutes of the game until Michigan started cheating, of course, and went on a huge run after that. Wisconsin, on the other hand, their offense has been pretty dismal ever since quarterback Tanner Mordecai got injured. They've only put up 6 points against Iowa, 10 points against Ohio State, 25 points against Illinois, which is, decent, but Illinois is not a particularly good defensive team. Indiana in the last 2 weeks has gone to quarterback Brendan Sorsby, and he's been pretty solid, connecting on a lot of big plays. And I think Indiana's going to score enough points at home to make sure that their defense covers this 9.5-point spread. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I like the under here as well, but taking Indiana plus 9.5 to cover.
Yeah, they got so close against Penn State, and I know they're hurting with that loss. So you add in that, plus the fact that they have to win out to get to a bowl game, and I think they're going to be locked in, and they're going to play a pretty good game. And I don't think Braylon Allen's going to play. I'm not sure if they've announced that or not, but I know he got hurt.
That'd be huge if he's out. I mean, Wisconsin's just missing so many of their key pieces. Tom Allen's D can feast on them.
Well, I don't hate getting points at home, so I'll probably ride this one with you because it is going to be a bounce back for Wisconsin, who played a really physical Ohio State team last week. And, having to go on the road after that could be tough. But Jake, hopefully we have some winners in here, and I'm excited to watch these ones on Saturday.
Absolutely. Here's to a great week. See you in the next one.